Hey, I'm so happy to have you for this episode of the Enneagram and Marriage podcast. Today, we're talking about Enneagram fours and all about relating to fours with partners of every pairing type. So, as you may know, we're walking through a series on all 45 pairings in the Enneagram, and it is definitely helpful that we're only walking through type fours today. So, fours with every type, as well as before that, some informations about fours in relationships. So if that you are a four or you're with somebody who identifies as an Enneagram 4, then you have some tips and clues for how to do this relationship really well. So that's my goal today, and I hope to serve you well with that. I also hope that you are grabbing the fun bonus chapter, the hidden chapter of the Enneagram in Marriage this week. Make sure that if you have purchased my book, that you grab that chapter. It is all on sexual intimacy for every type, understanding the 4-week cycle, all about all the issues I have seen across 20 years with my couples. And of course, our team is here if you just have nuanced issues, even beyond that, too. But it's a free chapter for anyone who has my book. My book is on sale at Amazon right now. So make sure you grab it, and it's in the show notes for you, too. Now, let's talk about the Enneagram 4, the creative artist, the individualist. This is a person who loves being unique and special and is unique and special. Make no mistake. We are all so unique, and yet there are commonalities between fours that we can identify and that help us, as I said, to get along with fours better if we're in relation to them or to understand ourselves better if we fall into that four category. Some of you have an arrow or a wing to a four, like I said, a partner, or you may say, oh, it's in my tri type. Or you may note a type 4 part of you in your tri type. At any rate, if this is a big piece of you, then you consider yourself somebody who loves relationships. Fours are in the heart triad of a grouping with twos and threes, people who can be codependent at times because they're so curious about what others feel about them and the desire to be loved. But also, just to put that plainly, any human has a desire for mating, and the heart types among us, those twos, threes, and here fours, really do a great job of just letting that be known. And they're also willing in that respect to go down to the depths of the heart with those they love, to say, here's the real me, here's the authenticity, here's what I feel, here's what's going on for me, and here's what I think about what I feel, and what do you think about what I feel? And so sometimes fours can be a bit self-referencing in that, but they also really care deeply about others and what they're thinking and feeling. So it can be really special to have a four partner or friendship because they really care about you on your dark nights of the soul, so to speak. When you're having a hard day or season, their compassion and empathy can come out big. But you have to be vulnerable if you want to access that, or they're going to sometimes tend toward that victimization that could come from feeling like, hey, I'm real and vulnerable, but nobody else is around me, and that's quite lonely. So make sure if you are partnered with a four that you also, when they are vulnerable, become vulnerable too. But also, if you're a four, make sure that you are doing your work to bring joy, because happiness is contagious scientifically, but depression is even more so. So if you're always talking or almost always talking about negativity and your spouse isn't typically joyful around you, you may wonder, why are they not happy? Why are they not bringing me up? Well, in effect, you may be bringing them down. So it's important that you remember the Gottman statistics of 5-to-1 positive to negative traits, even while we're in a conflict conversation. But you also want to have 20-to-1 positive in terms of positive versus negative trait characteristic. And that could be nonverbal things where you're smiling at your partner, or it could be things where you're complimenting them or talking about something interesting, asking how they are. These positive pieces of your life and dynamics will help your spouse to have more joy toward you. So make sure if you're struggling with how to procure that, that you look to the basics of self-care to say, am I really just thinking in a melancholy way, or am I allowing myself to have some tears? Like I went to that movie, so good, Inside Out 2, and I'm sure all the fours are like, I'm seeing that, or I have seen it, unless you're like, oh no, everyone's seeing it, I'll wait. I could see fours doing that too, but really good to just actually delve down all the way to the feelings and feel them versus just, like I said, think about them. And that's a good movie for that, because fours know that depression and anxiety are two heads of the same coin. And so they can get very anxious, very sad if they don't offer themselves that refreshing time to release the sadness and tears and to move forward. So it's important that you do that regularly so that you can come back into a joyful space of self-care, regular workouts, walks. Often fours really do well to procure the happiness by being part of a routine or class that keeps them regularly having to attend, because they're going to lose points if they don't go. Like, oh, I bought this membership to this class, and if I don't go, my teacher will look down on me and I will miss money. These are realities of life, that we are social creatures. And so although your teacher hopefully would be forgiving, it's also important to have people to dig you out of that melancholy place or place of not moving, since fours can be doing inhibited. So having some markers for accountability is really good in your life. And your spouse, I would hope, is not the only one, because no one wants their spouse to have to parent them fully, or especially that spouse doesn't want to have to do that. Like, come on, let's get you moving. But at the same time, if you married a four and you have all the benefits of the four, sometimes one of your things to do with them is to say, hey, like, I hear you. I'm right with you. I want to sit with you and process this authentically and give you some time and space for it. But I'd also like to make sure we keep our schedule going. Fours actually do respond well to this if they feel heard, and they do have a natural arrow movement. If you're familiar with the arrows of the Enneagram, their first movement is to type 1, this place of efficiency and order and routine. And so often fours really can get up, get moving, and go into this space of schedules, and can do quite well with that. In fact, so many fours that I've worked with have told me, gosh, I need my 4 back because I've gone into my 1 and I'm really productive. I'm at that season of life, but I'm also struggling because I need my artist creativity time back. So always what I say to fours is make sure you schedule in a couple of hours per week, especially if you're in a busy season of raising kids, just for your creative endeavors, because every artist knows there's a difference between getting commissioned to do something and then just having some time to really allow for thoughtfulness, creativity around whatever it is that you are bringing to the world with your gift. Because we said you bring that depth of empathy with others, but you also bring this great gift of being able to be an artist in some way, whether it's through your speaking, through your writing, through your painting. I know my 4 daughter this week is doing choreography and teaching dance classes, and it's, mentally draining because you guys have to think of, what am I going to do to create these movements or this artistic rendition in whatever form. But it's also fun to see it finish up, especially if you can access that one arrow, like I said, and really keep working on a piece so that it has some detail too. But you can't do that if you're always commissioned for other things and always just doing routine tasks, or always stuck in the melancholy. So come back to your artistry, sometimes just for fun, as well as doing and getting busy with the things of life that are necessities and can also bring joy. Now, another important space for the 4, since they can be melancholy and self-referencing, is to go to the 2 space of giving. We know from statistics that we have better bio-blood markers when we're helpful to others, and when we're actually communicating in a way that confers competency on our world, not just establishing, I know sometimes 4s like hierarchies and looking at ranking. And so instead of just looking at how can I get to a top by withdrawing, by push-pulling, try to confer competency on others by sharing, resourcing, and by rising up, but including others, being inclusive, especially if you have familiarity with not being included. It's just so powerful when a 4 can go to that space and not a space of the unhealthy to pride or manipulation. So these are important spaces for you. And if you're, like I said, partnered with a 4, encourage them in doing, join them in their artistry at times when you can, even if it's not your favorite thing. Allow them to bring you into deep conversations and dreaming. And both of you need to remember idealizing can happen when you're with or are a 4. So just allow yourself that sweet reminder that it's fun to have dreams and to look up with our projects and goals and plans, but not to overwhelm ourselves or our partners with our romanticism. So I hope you're laughing with me about that, because I totally get it. If you do that sometimes, I do it too, but it's just important for you to keep remembering, let's be pragmatic as well. Let's realize what season we're in so that we can appreciate what we already have versus falling into that trap of envy that the 4 can fall into because of the lack of ideals being perfectly played out. So those are some gifts to you, reminders, refreshments for those who have already done their Enneagram work and are just coming back for a revisit. Make sure you grab my book for a deep dive into more. And we're going to take a moment to go through all of the pairings with 4 now, also 1 through 9. So type 1 with type 4, as you heard me say a couple times, this is a dynamic pairing because 1s are the space that 4s go to in their healthy space. So this is a pairing that can get so much accomplished, but also when they feel like the work is done. 1 also has a relationship to 4 if you're a type 1 out there. So they actually appreciate the artistry and the slowing down that the 4 brings them. And it's beautiful, but it's of course clunky as ever sometimes, because the 1 is like, I have to keep doing efficiency. And the 4 is like dream, artistry. And they have separate ideals. They're both idealists. So they have to make sure to communicate. And 1 can be a bit more masculine at times in terms of just what we would think of as more dominant energy. And the 4 can release into that sometimes and just be receptive energy. So make sure that you allow yourself some time to really be diplomatic together versus one of you just allowing for their thoughts and feelings to be seen, because I know the 4 may bottle that up or do something passive aggressive. Otherwise, people need to process their issues no matter what, and they come out sideways if they don't. So that's just a word for you, even as much as I love your creative idealism together. Now, 2s with 4s are really symbiotic in a lot of ways. Sometimes you see the gorgeous depths of love from this pairing and the fun collabs, and you can also see just the sense of, wow, we have gotten ourselves into really deep conversations and we've lost ourselves in the moment and we are not in our responsibility mode right now. So sometimes this pairing needs help just getting the basic day-to-day chores done. 1 is very positive, the 2, and that 4 can be quite a dreamer. So together, it's just important for you to have some accountability. Maybe you meet with a financial coach regularly. Maybe you guys allow yourselves to see which of you can lean in that one wing or one arrow and create budgets. But this is an important pairing also in the way that they can be as 2 heart types codependent and really need to do your own self-esteem work too, so that you know when your partner's having a bad day or manipulating, you can set your boundaries. Now, 3s and 4s have both at times usually felt a bit of shame and loss around, gosh, I wasn't appreciated for who I am, my achievements or my uniqueness. So they can uniquely gift each other with the 3 saying, oh my gosh, like here I am an achiever. And I see how you set the tone for a lot of the artistry out there. 4s that we all espouse and put on as a world, and you're so creative and unique that we all learn from you. And the 4 can say to the 3, but gosh, yeah, you're a doer and you achieve it so well. And so I love to be part of that and to have you bring me up and out. So keep doing that, guys. 4s, keep calling your 3s to restful rhythms, and 3s, keep calling your 4s to step out of the shadows and into the light. And together, you guys do create a balance, and there's a lot of purpose together and a lot of creativity. Now, 4s with other 4s get along really well on the level of depth. They can hold each other's intuition usually. They can hold each other's thoughts very well and analyze together very critically and even slow down together, and nobody's rushing the other. So there's a lot of mutual rhythms that feel really good. Now, what can be hard, like we said with the 2-4, is sometimes you have people who are dreaming and idealizing and not getting things done as much. You have people who are just so fun to listen and talk to together, but they have to get practical with their 1 arrow, with their 2 arrow, and really, and even their 3 wing, to allow themselves to form goals and to meet those goals and to get out of their imagery and creativity to do something in the world and to help others. And of course, to think in that 5 space as well in terms of focus. So I think it's a great wing, and you can see all the actionable pairing things they can do when they're leaning on these different spaces, since they are a double pairing, which is a little bit rare, but I see it sometimes. Now, 4s with 5s, gosh, a prolific pairing. You've heard me say this on the podcast before when we've had guests of this nature. It is almost symbiotic because there's so much of that winging going on, 5 wing 4, 4 wing 5, and able to sit in the dark night of the soul, but not just sit there, but to feel and think your way out, and to be big dreamers, but also creators who know how to think. And so sometimes you see great big projects either appreciated by one another or collaborated on together from this pairing, and you can gift the world with your creative wisdom. So I love that. And just remember, as 2 withdrawing types, that it's important that you both do take time for exactly that, both together and separately, because there's a lot of beautiful rhythms that can come when we take a little bit of time away and the passion can resurface. So just try not to bombard each other with constant togetherness. Although I also really have talked to 4 5s that say, we actually can be together because we're so symbiotic. We cannot talk for a while and then we can come back together. So I like that too. Okay, now 4s with 6s can support one another in the ways that the 6 feels so comforted by the 4 just holding their heart, their weary heart. 4s are great at slowing them down and listening to the 6s. 4s appreciate the fast pacing, the wittiness of the 6. It gets them laughing. It gets them in a fun spirit. It gets them in a pragmatic space, and they can really encourage each other in those unique ways. And of course, as 2 reactive types, when they're in a tizzy or a big fight or a conflict, it can be just so detrimental. So be aware that you need boundaries around your conflict styles so that you can take breaks and be human together and say, gosh, it's a hard moment together. We need to have a plan when we're both in our element for anger, for frustration, for sadness, so that we can keep ourselves within the limits. Because there's no problem with the fact that you're both passionate. You already have that going for you, but you're going to need to add in logic and positivity. So that's a big space for this pairing to grow in. Now, 4-7 being a beautiful adventure can be just that, can be 2 idealists who are going out dreaming big and getting a lot done, because that 7 is pulling them along with the envisioning and the encouragement, and the 4 is allowing them to slow down and take time and enjoy life. And the 7 loves that because they're both a bit self-referencing. Sometimes there's a sense of 4 and 7 together needing to really show up for each other with sacrifice, to really get that grit going that they both have, but that they often would use toward their own personal goals, or maybe goals in the world, but to use them on each other in the marriage. Also, I want to encourage, because they both have a 1 space, that they could both be very critical of the other and judgy, and maybe even not talk about it sometimes, because the 7 wants to quickly grab at it and have at it the fight, and the 4 is like, I'm going to withdraw. So it can be like, all right, well, let's patch it up and then never come back to it. So I encourage you, if you're a 4-7, come back to your hard convos. That's so important. You're worth it. Now, 4-8, once again, we come to that space of the dominance and the receptivity. So if you're in an 8-4 pairing, make sure that you allow for the conversation to flow both directions and for the 4 to have a voice and to not be in the masochist role. So that just looks like you guys saying, okay, 8 is moving a lot faster. I'm slowing down. I'm taking my deep breaths, and I want to hear your genuine, authentic thoughts, even if they're different from mine. And the 4 is saying, I also take accountability to know that you're moving faster than me, and I probably can't pace with you, but I want to honor you as much as I can too. And that looks like the 4 not going into the withdrawing stance all the time, but just saying, sometimes I need that, but sometimes I'm going to let you bring me out so that I can really come back to you with action, not just with thought. Because 8s are a very action-oriented type, so they need some of that. And of course, 8s, many of you are good at going to the depths and appreciate the emotional range of somebody with that 4. So there's a lot of joy to this pairing too. Now, the 4-9 is a lovely withdrawing pairing, like I said, with 4-5. And they can both take time to reflect, to enjoy what they collab on. The 4 is so excited for the 9's voice to be heard. The 9 is so excited to make the 4 feel special, which they love, and to merge with them a bit. At times, however, depending on who's in their 1 arrow, they can be critical and a little bit bossy. So it's important, if you have that parent part of you guys going on, supplementing, that maybe you use it to get you in action yourself, versus pointing daggers at your spouse or partner and saying like, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that. But instead just allowing yourself, I say that especially to the 4, to take the deep breath and allow the 9 to do their own work. And so a great way to get a 9 moving anyway is to encourage them in fitness, and taking a nightly walk together is a good idea, or doing some sort of fun fitness together can help that a lot too. Of course, the fun stuff, I know you're going to do the shows, the chilling out together, the creativity together, but just make sure you also take time for getting action going too, since you're withdrawing types. And for having the hard conversations, the 4 will make sure of that, but the 9 will make sure to bring in the fun. So I love that pairing. All of us have something to offer each other when we really look for it, as you can hear. So I hope that you'll make sure to find your treatment plan and all the rest, including the bonus, at my website, enneagramandmarriage.com. Make sure you send me your screenshot or receipt to get your bonus chapter, your hidden chapter, which is about sexual intimacy. And I am so happy to talk to you. It's all in the show notes as well. Thanks, guys, for being here. Make sure you also check out our contest on Instagram this week. Okay, bye-bye.